The royal capital of Eloria floated under a violet sky, shining like a crown made of glass and light. From far above, the city looked calm and perfect, with smooth towers and silver bridges, and ships gliding between them like quiet birds. But inside the palace, calm was only a mask. Behind the polished walls, every breath carried pressure, every footstep carried history, and every smile had rules. Princess Liara stood alone in a wide hallway made of pale stone that felt cool even through her ceremonial shoes. The palace air smelled faintly of clean metal and delicate flowers grown in controlled gardens. She could hear distant voices from the grand hall where the summit guests were gathering. The sound traveled like soft thunder through the corridors. Liara's hands were folded neatly in front of her, the way she had been trained. Her posture was perfect. Her face was calm. Only her eyes moved, and even that movement was careful. She had learned long ago that the Empire watched its princesses the way it watched its stars, with quiet hunger and heavy expectations. A thin bracelet on her wrist warmed slightly, signaling an incoming message. The light shimmered across her skin, then faded. "Princess," a palace attendant said, stepping out from a side passage. He bowed low, as proper protocol demanded. "The Emperor requests your presence in the Grand Strategy Chamber." Liara nodded. Her voice sounded steady to her own ears, and she was proud of that. She took a breath and began walking. Each step echoed softly, the sound swallowed by expensive silence. As she moved, she tried to prepare herself. The Emperor did not summon his daughter during a summit without a reason. It would be political. It would be strategic. It would be something that would make the Empire stronger. That was always the answer. When she reached the strategy chamber, 2 guards in formal armor shifted their spears in salute and opened the tall doors. Inside, the room was dim compared to the bright hallways. A large hollow table glowed in the center, casting moving star maps on the walls. It displayed lines of trade routes, defense lanes, and the colored symbols of allied systems. Iolia's empire spread far, and every line on that map represented control, responsibility, and risk. Emperor Kaelor stood on the far side of the table. He was tall, dignified, and unmoving, as if the palace itself had shaped him into a statue. His robes were dark with threads that caught the light like hidden stars. His eyes were sharp, but not cruel. He had never been cruel. That was what made him so difficult to oppose. He believed he was doing what was right. 2 advisors stood nearby. One was High Minister Sarek, known for his strict loyalty to tradition. The other was General Vathan, the head of Palace Defense, whose face rarely showed emotion. Liara approached and bowed. "Father." Kaelor looked at her for a long moment. It was not a warm look, not cold either. It was the look of a ruler weighing a piece on a board. "Liara," he said, "sit." She sat in the chair placed for her beside the table. Her hands stayed folded. Her bracelet stayed silent. Her heart did not. "The summit begins in less than an hour," Kaelor said. "The human delegation is arriving." The humans had been a topic of discussion for many cycles. They were new to the wider galaxy, but their rise had been fast. They were not the most advanced species, not the strongest, not the richest, yet they were unpredictable in a way that made old empires nervous. Liara spoke carefully. "I understand."
"The court has prepared the welcome sequence." Kaelor nodded slightly.
"This is more than a welcome. It is a turning point." High Minister Sarek stepped closer. "Your Majesty, the human presence is still sensitive. Many noble houses distrust them. Some see them as a risk to our stability." General Vathan added, "Security has increased. But the real danger is not physical. It is political." Kaelor's gaze remained on Liara. "That is why we must guide the narrative before the narrative controls us." Liara waited. She knew better than to interrupt. Silence was a tool in this palace, and her father used it well. Kaelor continued, "We will announce an alliance framework today. It will include shared trade, technology exchange, and a defense understanding." Liara's mind moved quickly. Those were major steps. The Empire did not share technology easily, and a defense understanding suggested trust. She nodded once. "That will change many things. It must," Kaelor said, "because others are watching. If we do not lead this era, we will be pulled by it." Then he said the next words with the same calm tone as if he were discussing fuel levels or ship routes. "To seal the alliance, there will be a union." Liara's breath paused in her chest, but her face remained smooth. "A union," she repeated. "Yes," Kaelor said. "A marriage." The word landed like a weight. Liara forced herself to keep her voice level.
"Whose marriage, father?" Kaelor did not look away.
"Yours." For a heartbeat, the room felt too quiet. Even the hollow table seemed to dim. Liara heard her own pulse, steady but loud. She had always known her marriage would be arranged. Every royal child knew that. But she had believed she would have time. She had believed she would at least be asked, even if the answer had already been decided. She looked at her father's face, searching for a sign that this was a test. There was none. Her lips parted, but her training held her back.
She tried again. "With whom?"
Kaelor lifted a hand, and the hollow table shifted.
A new symbol appeared, the human delegation marker. A profile image formed above it, a human male in formal uniform. His posture was straight, his expression calm but alert. "This is Captain Adrian Hale," Kaelor said. "He is the human envoy's senior liaison. He has served in their fleet and has a reputation for restraint. He will represent their side in the Union." Liara stared at the image. The human's face was different from her people's, but not unpleasant. His eyes looked tired in a quiet way, like someone who had seen hard things and kept going anyway. Still, none of that mattered. The decision had already been made. High Minister Sarek spoke in a firm, approving tone. "Princess, this is a great honor. You will become the bridge between worlds." Liara turned her head slightly toward Sarek.
"A bridge built without consent collapses," she said, still softly.
Sarek's eyes narrowed. Consent is a human obsession. Duty is the foundation of empires. General Vathan watched silently, but Liara saw a flicker of concern in his gaze. Kaelor leaned forward slightly. "Liara!"
"I did not call you here to debate. I called you here to prepare you."
Lyra's hands tightened together for a moment, then relaxed. "Father, you taught me that leadership requires understanding. How can there be understanding if my own voice is not heard?" Kaelor's expression softened, just a fraction. "Your voice is heard, but the needs of our people are greater than individual desire." Liara's throat felt tight. "And what of my future?" Kaelor's tone remained even. "Your future is our future. You are not only my daughter, you are a symbol of continuity. You will do what must be done." She could not show anger. Anger would be called weakness. She could not show fear. Fear would be called instability. She had only one safe option: calm. She rose slowly from her chair. "When will this be announced?" Kaelor's eyes remained on her. "Today?" During the opening ceremony, Lyra gave a controlled bow. "Then I will prepare. Lyra." She turned and left the chamber. The doors closed behind her with a soft final sound. Outside, the palace hallway was still perfect. Light still shone on clean stone. But Liara felt as if she were walking through invisible storms. She moved toward her private suite, the place where she could remove her formal mask for a few minutes at a time. As she entered, the doors sealed quietly and the soft lights adjusted to her presence. A personal attendant, an older woman named Myra, approached with a respectful bow. Myra had served Liara since childhood. She was one of the few people in the palace who spoke to the princess like a living being, not a symbol. "Princess," Myra said gently.
"You were summoned. Is something wrong?" Lyra took a slow breath.
The words felt heavy even in her own mind. "My father will announce my marriage today." "Today? That is... sudden?" Liara's calm broke just enough to show the truth.
"It is to a human." Myra blinked, then lowered her gaze. "The court will react strongly." Liara walked toward a tall window that looked out over the city. Airships moved in clean lanes, and the sun reflected off the towers like liquid gold.
It was beautiful. It always was. And yet she felt trapped inside it.
"I am not afraid of their reaction,"
Liara said.
"I am afraid of losing myself." Myra stepped closer, careful but sincere. "Do you want this?"
The surface was cold.
"I do not know the human."
"I do not hate him, but I hate being commanded like a tool."
Myra nodded slowly. "Then you must be careful, Princess."
The Emperor will not tolerate public defiance. Liara stared out at the sky. Somewhere beyond that sky were worlds that did not know her name. Worlds where she could have walked freely without the weight of crowns.
"Sometimes," Lyra whispered, "defiance is the only way to breathe." Myra's face tightened with worry, but she did not argue. A soft chime sounded from the room's communication panel.
Myra touched it, and a palace messenger voice spoke. "Princess Liara is requested in the diplomatic reception corridor." "The human liaison captain has arrived early. He requests a brief private greeting, as protocol allows."
Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. "He requested it?" "Yes," Myra said.
"It seems the human captain asked directly," the diplomats agreed.
"That was unusual. In the Empire, no one asked a princess for anything." They requested permission from layers of officials. Asking directly was either bold or foolish. Liara felt a small spark of curiosity, cutting through the heaviness.
"I will go,"
she said. Myra helped adjust Lyra's ceremonial cloak. The fabric shimmered softly, a royal symbol woven into it. Liara stared at the symbol, then forced herself not to tear it away. She would not let emotion control her actions. Not yet. The diplomatic corridor was wider than most palace hallways, designed for meeting foreign guests. Flags of allied worlds hung along the walls, each representing centuries of treaties. Lyra walked with 2 guards behind her, silent as shadows. She reached the designated meeting alcove. There, standing alone, was a human in dark formal uniform. Captain Adrian Hale turned when he heard her approach. He did not bow the way aliens bowed. Instead, he straightened and placed a hand over his chest in a respectful gesture. "Princess Liara," he said. His voice was calm, clear, and not overly confident. He looked at her face, then lowered his gaze slightly, a sign of respect rather than submission. Lyra studied him. He was taller than she expected, with short dark hair and a face that carried quiet seriousness. His eyes were a shade of brown that reminded her of some warm stones found in the palace gardens.
"You requested to see me," Liara said.
"Yes," Adrian replied. "If I overstepped, I apologize."
"I was told it was permitted." "It was permitted," Liara said, her voice neutral.
"Why did you request it?" Adrian hesitated, as if choosing words carefully. "Because I learned what the Emperor intends to announce."
Liara's posture stiffened slightly.
"Then you know I have not been consulted." Adrian's jaw tightened, Not with anger at her, but at the situation. I know. And I didn't want you to think I came here proud of it. That answer was not what Liara expected. Most people would pretend enthusiasm. Pretending enthusiasm was safer.
You do not want this? Liara asked. Adrian looked up, meeting her eyes for a brief moment.
I want peace between our peoples. I want trust. But I don't want it built on forcing someone into a life they didn't choose. Lyra felt something shift inside her, like a locked door moving slightly in its frame.
You speak as if you have the power to refuse, she said. Adrian let out a small breath.
If I refuse publicly, it could look like an insult. It could harm the alliance.
But if I stay silent, it makes me part of something wrong. It was strange to hear a human describe morality so openly in the middle of a palace where words were used like weapons. You are honest, Liara said, almost as a statement of fact.
I try to be, Adrian answered. It's not always easy. Liara's guards remained still behind her, but she could feel their attention sharpening.
This conversation was dangerous. Not because of violence, but because of truth. Liara lowered her voice slightly. Captain Hale, in this palace, honesty can be punished.
On my world, too. Just in different ways. For a moment, silence hung between them.
Liara asked, Do you believe your people truly want this marriage? Adrian considered. Some will. Some will see it as a victory. Others will see it as a symbol of unity. But most just want the fighting and distrust to stop before it grows into something worse.
Liara looked at him again, and now she noticed something else.
He was not trying to impress her. His posture was controlled, but not arrogant.
He seemed like someone used to being watched and misunderstood.
She said, My father believes duty is stronger than choice.
Duty can hold a ship together in a storm, but if it's the only thing holding it, the ship never becomes a home. The words were simple, yet they struck deep. She could not allow herself to feel comfort. Comfort would weaken her resolve, but she also could not deny the quiet respect building inside her. Before she could respond, a palace bell sounded in the distance, a deep tone that meant the opening ceremony was approaching. Liara's chest tightened. The announcement was coming, and with it, the trap. Adrian spoke quickly, as if sensing her tension.
Princess, if you choose to speak against it, I won't stand in your way. I won't try to stop you.
Lyra looked at him sharply. You would accept the political damage? Adrian's eyes held steady. I would accept being blamed if it means you're not alone. Lyra felt her composure strain. No one in this palace offered to share blame. Blame was thrown like a blade. She turned slightly as if to leave. We will meet again during the ceremony. And whatever happens, I hope you stay safe. Safe. Such a small word, but in that moment, it sounded like a gift. Liara walked away, her guards following. Her mind raced. She had expected a human who would celebrate being chosen by an empire. Instead, she found one who looked uncomfortable with power. As she returned to her preparation chamber near the Grand Hall, servants adjusted her cloak, smoothed her hair, and placed a delicate crown piece above her forehead. The jewel in the center glowed faintly, reacting to her body heat. It felt heavier than usual, like it knew what it represented. The Grand Hall was enormous, filled with nobles, diplomats, and guards arranged in precise order. Hollow screens floated above, ready to broadcast the ceremony across the empire. Every important house was watching. Every allied world was listening. Even distant rivals would observe, searching for weakness. Liara stepped into her place beside her father's throne platform. Emperor Kaelor stood tall, his presence commanding without effort. The human delegation entered from the opposite side, led by their ambassador, Captain Adrian walked behind them, his face composed, but Liara noticed a tension in his shoulders. The ceremony began with formal greetings. Speeches followed, filled with careful words about progress, unity, and the future. Lyra's ears heard them, but her heart was elsewhere. Then Kalor lifted his hand.
The hall fell silent instantly. "Today," the Emperor said, his voice carrying across the room, "we welcome humanity into a new era of trust."
To seal this alliance, we will join our bloodlines and our destinies. My daughter, Princess Liara, will be united with Captain Adrian Hale of Earth."
A ripple ran through the crowd. Surprise, excitement, suspicion, many emotions hidden behind trained faces.
Liara felt her lungs tighten. This was the moment. If she stayed silent, she would become a symbol, trapped forever. If she spoke, she could tear open a storm. She looked ahead at the endless sea of watching eyes. She felt the weight of the crown piece on her forehead. She felt the invisible chains of tradition. And then she felt something else. Something she did not expect. A memory of Adrian's voice. "I won't stand in your way." Liara's vision blurred. Not from weakness, but from pressure breaking through her control. A single tear slipped down her cheek, shining under the hall lights like a small confession. The nobles leaned forward slightly, shocked to see emotion in the princess's face. Lyra lifted her chin. Her voice did not shake when she spoke, but it carried a sharp truth that cut through the ceremony. "I cannot accept a marriage commanded as a tool of politics," she said clearly.
"I will not bind my life to duty without choice."
The hall froze. Emperor Kalor's face darkened. Not with rage, but with the quiet, dangerous calm of a ruler whose board had been disrupted. Liara stood there, the tear still on her cheek, feeling the Empire's silence crash down around her like a wave, knowing that after this moment, nothing would be the same. Silence spread through the grand hall like a slow-moving storm. Thousands of eyes remained fixed on Princess Liara as her words echoed against the towering walls, the glow from floating lights reflected in her tear, making it impossible to ignore. For a moment, even the air felt frozen. Emperor Kalor stood unmoving beside her. His expression revealed little, but those who knew him understood that deep thoughts were racing behind his calm mask. Around them, nobles shifted uncomfortably, uncertain whether they were witnessing courage or disaster. Captain Adrian Hale remained where he stood among the human delegation. His hands stayed at his sides, his posture respectful but tense. But he had expected resistance from Liara, but hearing her openly reject the arranged marriage still struck him with unexpected force. He knew the political weight of her words could ripple across two civilizations. The human ambassador looked toward Adrian briefly, as if searching for guidance, but Adrian kept his gaze forward. This was not his moment to speak. The Emperor finally raised one hand. The movement was small, but it commanded attention instantly.
"The ceremony will pause," Kalor said calmly. His voice carried authority without anger, which confused many in the audience.
Guards shifted position, guiding guests toward quiet conversation zones, while royal officials whispered into communication devices. Liara felt the weight of countless stares pressing against her. She kept her posture straight, refusing to retreat. Her heart beat fast, but she refused to show fear.
"Come with me," Kalor said quietly to her. He turned without waiting for a reply.
Liara followed, aware that cameras were still recording. She forced herself to walk with dignity. Showing weakness now would allow others to rewrite her decision as emotional instability rather than deliberate choice. They entered a private corridor that sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Only 2 guards remained outside. Inside, the air felt heavier. Kalor stopped and turned toward her. For a long moment, he said nothing. Liara waited, prepared for anger or disappointment.
"You have embarrassed the throne," he said finally.
His tone was not loud, but it carried weight. Lyra met his gaze. "I spoke truth. Truth is a weapon he replied. "It must be used carefully." "Silence is also a weapon," she said quietly. "And it destroys slowly." Kaler's eyes narrowed slightly.
You believe I wish to harm you? I believe you wish to use me, she answered.
The words hung between them. Kaler walked slowly to the window at the end of the corridor, looking out at the city below. Ships moved through the sky in calm patterns, unaware of the storm inside the palace. "You are young," he said after a moment. Liara's voice remained steady. "I am old enough to understand what my life means. Your life belongs to the Empire. And does your life belong to the Empire?" she asked.
"Yes," he answered without hesitation. Liara felt a flicker of sadness.
That answer explained everything. Her father did not see himself as a person first. He saw himself as a symbol, a guardian of continuity. To him, sacrifice was strength. "I cannot be only a symbol," she said. "If I lose myself, what remains of the future you want me to lead?" There was anger in his eyes now, but also something else. Uncertainty. Before he could respond, the corridor doors opened slightly. High Minister Sarek stepped inside, bowing quickly.
"Your Majesty," Sarek said, "the nobles are unsettled."
Some demand punishment, others request clarification.
The human delegation is waiting for direction. Kaler's gaze hardened again.
Resume the ceremony later. Inform them negotiations will continue. The alliance remains intact.
Ooh.
Sarek hesitated.
Ooh.
Magic. And the marriage... Kaler paused, undecided. Sarek's lips pressed thin, but he bowed and left. Liara felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. The conflict was not over. It had only begun. "Return to your quarters," Kaler said finally. "We will speak again tonight." Liara bowed slightly and turned to leave. As she walked away, she felt her hands tremble for the first time. She closed her fingers into fists until the trembling stopped. Outside the corridor, palace attendants moved quickly, whispering to one another. News traveled faster than any ship. By now, the entire capital probably knew what had happened. When Lyra reached her private suite, Mayara rushed toward her.
"Princess," she said softly.
You spoke openly. The palace is filled with rumors. Lyra removed her crown piece and placed it carefully on a table.
Without it, her head felt lighter. "I expected that," she said quietly. Mayra hesitated. "Are you safe?" Liara allowed herself a small, tired smile. For now. Somewhere out there were beings who lived without being watched every second. She wondered how that felt. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Another message. "Captain Adrian Hale requests permission to speak," Mayra read from the panel. Liara considered for a moment. She should refuse. Speaking to him privately could create more political complications. But something inside her wanted clarity. "Allow him," she said. Minutes later, Adrian entered the room. He paused respectfully near the entrance. "Princess," he said. Lyara turned toward him. For a moment they simply looked at each other, both aware that the world outside had shifted.
"You stood alone," Adrian said quietly.
"That took courage." Liara shook her head slightly. "It took desperation."
Sometimes they look the same, he replied.
She studied his face.
"Are your leaders angry?"
Adrian smiled faintly.
Confused. Some think this is a diplomatic failure.
Others think it proves you're honest. Lyra folded her arms lightly.
"And you? I think you saved both of us from pretending," he said. The honesty in his voice surprised her again.
"I worried you would feel insulted," she admitted. I worried you would feel trapped, he answered.
Silence settled between them again, but it felt less heavy than before. "What happens now?" Adrian asked. Liara looked away briefly. "My father will try to regain control of the narrative."
The nobles will pressure him. Some may try to turn this into proof that humans cannot be trusted.
Adrian nodded slowly. "Then we need to make sure that doesn't happen." Lyra raised an eyebrow.
If you allow it.
He said carefully, "We both want the Alliance to succeed."
Maybe we can help guide things away from conflict.
Lyra considered his words.
Working with him might strengthen the Alliance without forcing a marriage. But it also meant exposing herself to more scrutiny.
"You risk becoming a target," she said.
Adrian gave a small shrug. "I already am." Lyra felt a quiet laugh rise in her chest, surprising her. She had not laughed in days. A sudden alarm sounded softly through the palace. Not loud enough to signal danger, but enough to indicate a developing situation. Mayra glanced at the communication panel. "There is unrest in the lower diplomatic district," she reported. "Protests forming."
Some groups oppose the alliance. Liara's expression hardened slightly.
Already.
Adrian stepped closer to the window, watching distant ships shifting position.
Agily.
"Yes," Liara said, "and nervous people are easily guided by those who want power." She turned toward him again. "Walk with me."
They left the suite together, accompanied by guards.
As they moved through the palace, whispers followed them. Some nobles watched with disapproval. Others watched with curiosity. Liara noticed Adrian greeting palace staff with quiet nods, not ignoring them the way many high-ranking figures did. A young technician dropped a tool near the corridor entrance, and Adrian instinctively bent to help pick it up before the guards could react. The technician looked shocked but grateful. Liara observed silently. Such small gestures carried meaning. They reached a balcony overlooking the diplomatic district. Far below, groups gathered with banners glowing in protest colors. The voices did not reach the palace clearly, but the tension was visible. Liara leaned slightly against the railing. This is what fear looks like before it becomes anger.
Adrian rested his hands lightly on the railing beside her. On Earth, we learned that forcing unity usually creates more division.
And what creates unity?
He thought for a moment. Choice.
Shared struggle. And sometimes, time. She nodded slowly. Time is something the Empire rarely allows. A sudden movement below caught their attention. Security drones shifted formation, responding to a disturbance. Liara's bracelet flashed with an incoming alert. She read it quickly.
"There was a sabotage attempt on a supply convoy," she said. "No injuries, but it looks organized."
That doesn't sound like random protest. No, Liara agreed. It sounds like someone trying to create chaos. If someone wanted to destroy the Alliance, today's events provided the perfect opportunity. Liara turned toward him.
"If enemies are moving, we must stay ahead of them."
Adrian nodded. "Then we start working together, not as symbols, but as partners."
It felt different from the forced bond of marriage. It felt chosen. Liara allowed herself a small breath of relief. For the first time since the announcement, she felt a path opening that did not trap her. Below them, the city lights flickered as evening approached, painting the sky with soft colors. Lyra watched the horizon and felt something new growing inside her, not certainty, not safety, but possibility. And as she stood beside the human she had just refused to marry, she realized that rejecting one destiny had opened the door to another she could help shape herself. Night settled slowly over the capital of Aloria, covering the shining towers in soft shades of violet and blue. The city looked peaceful from a distance, but inside its streets tension moved like an unseen current. News of Princess Liara's rejection had spread across the Empire faster than any official announcement. Some citizens praised her courage, others feared the political consequences, and many waited anxiously to see what would happen next. Liara stood in a quiet planning chamber overlooking the lower diplomatic district. The lights from protest gatherings flickered below like distant stars. Beside her, Captain Adrian Hale studied a floating display showing recent security reports. The room was smaller than the grand halls of the palace, but it felt more honest. Here, fewer masks were required. Sabotage attempts have increased, Adrian said, scanning the report. 3 incidents in different sectors within a few hours. That doesn't look spontaneous. Liara crossed her arms thoughtfully.
Agreed. Someone is guiding the unrest.
Fear is being shaped into a weapon. General Vathan stood near the entrance, silent but attentive. He had joined them after receiving orders from the Emperor to assist in maintaining stability. Although loyal to Kalor, he had always respected Liara's intelligence.
The palace believes extremist factions are involved, Vathan said. Noble House Syraxis has expressed strong opposition to the alliance.
Their influence reaches several outer systems. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. House Syraxis had long favored isolation and strict adherence to tradition. They believed opening to humanity would weaken the Empire's cultural identity. Do they have evidence? She asked.
Only circumstantial, Vathan replied. But their rhetoric has grown sharper since the summit began.
Adrian leaned closer to the display.
If they want to disrupt the alliance, creating chaos after your public rejection is perfect timing. They can blame humans and push the Empire back into isolation, which means we must find proof before the narrative turns against us. She turned toward Adrian. You are still willing to help? He met her gaze calmly.
I said I wouldn't stand in your way. That includes standing beside you when things get complicated.
The simplicity of his answer warmed something inside her, though she kept her expression controlled. They spent the next hour reviewing reports and planning investigation routes. Rather than remaining in the safety of the palace, Liara insisted on visiting one of the affected districts personally. Vathan hesitated at first but eventually agreed after increasing security measures. As they traveled through the city in a discreet transport vehicle, Liara watched the streets through the window. Crowds gathered in clusters, voices rising in heated debate. Some banners displayed messages of unity between species, while others warned against foreign influence. This is what change looks like, Adrian said quietly, noticing her focus. It looks fragile, Lyra replied. The vehicle stopped near a damaged supply depot where security teams worked to repair broken equipment. Smoke still lingered faintly in the air. Liara stepped out, her royal presence immediately attracting attention. Workers paused, unsure whether to bow or continue their tasks. She gestured gently for them to continue, refusing to let formality slow progress. An engineer approached, nervous but eager to explain. Princess! The sabotage targeted communication systems, not resources. Whoever did this wanted confusion, not destruction. Jovo! Liara exchanged a glance with Adrian. A calculated move, she murmured. Adrian crouched near a damaged panel, examining the cuts along the wiring. These marks look precise, not random. Someone with technical training. Vathan signaled his officers to record everything. We will trace tool signatures and energy residue. While rutting, the young worker staring at Adrian with curiosity rather than suspicion. Adrian smiled gently and asked if anyone had seen unusual activity before the attack. His calm tone encouraged cooperation, and several witnesses stepped forward. Liara watched how easily he connected with strangers. Humans seemed to bridge emotional distance without effort, a skill rarely valued in her culture. She wondered if that was why they adapted so quickly to new environments. One witness described seeing cloaked figures leaving shortly before the sabotage. Another mentioned hearing coded signals broadcast briefly through the local network. Someone wanted to send a message, Adrian said.
Maybe to coordinate multiple groups. Lyra's bracelet flashed again with new data. She reviewed it quickly.
There was another incident in a transport hub, she said. Same pattern. This is organized resistance. Liara looked at the darkened skyline. Then we must move faster. They returned to the palace late at night, carrying new evidence.
Instead of rest, Liara requested access to restricted archives containing records of political factions.
Adrian assisted, comparing human intelligence reports with alien data.
Hours passed as they analyzed patterns. Gradually, connections formed between sabotage sites and financial networks tied to House Syraxis. Adrian leaned back slightly. If this is correct, they're using intermediaries to hide their involvement. They never appear directly.
That allows him to deny responsibility while guiding events.
She paused, thinking deeply. But why now? They could have opposed the alliance quietly.
Adrian considered, because your rejection created uncertainty.
They think the Empire is vulnerable. Peace. Liara felt a spark of anger, not at him, but at the manipulation. They underestimate us. Before they could continue, a palace guard entered quickly.
Princess, he said, bowing. The Emperor requests your presence immediately. Liara exchanged a glance with Adrian, then followed the guard to the throne chamber. The vast room felt colder than usual.
Kaler stood alone near the throne, looking tired but composed.
You have been busy, he said.
Liara nodded. We believe House Syraxis is behind the sabotage attempts.
Evidence? She handed him the data tablet. He studied it carefully. This is serious, he said after a moment. Accusing a noble house without absolute proof could divide the Empire. I understand, Lyra replied.
But if we do nothing, they will control the narrative. Kaler looked at her longer than usual. You have changed since yesterday. Liara held his gaze.
Perhaps I have started choosing for myself. The Emperor's expression softened slightly, though he did not comment further. We will investigate discreetly, he said. But you must be careful. Those who challenge powerful traditions often become targets.
I am already a target, she answered calmly.
Kaler's eyes flicked toward Adrian, who had entered quietly behind her.
And you, human captain? Why involve yourself so deeply?
Adrian spoke respectfully, because instability between our peoples will harm both sides, and because I believe the princess is right. The Emperor studied him silently, as if measuring his sincerity.
Very well, Kaler said finally. Continue your investigation.
But remember that every action you take reflects on the throne.
Liara bowed slightly and left with Adrian. Outside the chamber, the palace corridors were nearly empty.
The night had grown deep and the lights dimmed to a soft glow. They walked in silence for a while until Adrian spoke. You challenged him directly again, he said. Liara smiled faintly.
He taught me to think he should not be surprised when I do.
Adrian chuckled softly. They reached a balcony overlooking the sleeping city. For the first time since the summit began, the tension between them felt lighter.
Earlier, Liara said quietly, I feared you might resent me for rejecting the marriage.
Adrian shook his head.
No. Honestly, I respect you more because of it.
Why? Because you chose honesty even when it was risky, he said.
That's rare anywhere. Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. She turned back toward the horizon, watching the stars appear one by one.
I am still afraid, she admitted. Of what? That even if we expose the conspiracy, some will never accept change. Adrian rested his arms on the railing.
Change doesn't need everyone at once. It just needs enough people willing to try. She considered his words carefully. Below them, the city lights shimmered softly, and distant patrol ships moved across the sky. For the first time since the ceremony, Liara felt something stronger than fear. Determination. She had rejected a life decided for her. Now she was shaping one herself, not alone but alongside someone who treated her as an equal, rather than a symbol. And as the investigation moved forward, she knew the coming days would test not only the alliance between species, but the bond forming between two individuals who had chosen trust over obligation. Morning light spread slowly across the capital world of Aloria, turning the silver towers into rivers of gold. From the highest balconies of the palace, the city looked peaceful again, but beneath that calm surface tension still moved quietly. News channels discussed the sabotage attempts, the uncertain future of the alliance, and most of all, Princess Liara's public rejection of the arranged marriage. Opinions were divided, and the Empire waited for its next direction. Liara stood at the edge of a wide observation terrace, watching the sunrise. The air felt cooler than usual, and for a moment she allowed herself to simply breathe without thinking about duty or politics. Behind her, footsteps approached quietly. "It's beautiful," Adrian said as he joined her. Liara nodded without turning.
The city always looks calm from above.
It hides its struggles well.
Adrian leaned lightly against the railing. That sounds familiar.
On Earth, we do that too. She glanced at him briefly. He looked tired but focused, as if he had spent the night reviewing reports again. "Any updates?" she asked. He nodded. "We traced several financial transfers connected to the sabotage. They lead back to companies controlled by House Syraxis. Not enough for public accusation yet, but strong enough to push further." Lyra's eyes sharpened. Then today may decide everything. Before Adrian could reply, her bracelet signaled an incoming summons. She read it quickly. "My father has called an emergency council," she said. "All major houses will attend."
That sounds like a confrontation.
"Yes," she said quietly.
And possibly a turning point. They walked together through the palace corridors toward the council chamber.
Servants and guards moved aside respectfully, though whispers followed them. Some gazes held admiration, others suspicion. Lyra ignored them. She had learned that public opinion shifted, like tides. The council chamber was already filled when they entered. Representatives from powerful noble houses sat in curved rows, their robes and insignias reflecting centuries of tradition. At the center, Emperor Kalor stood near the throne platform, calm but serious. High Minister Sarek spoke loudly as Liara approached. "Your Majesty, the instability grows because we hesitate. The alliance with humans has already created division." Another noble rose. The princess's rejection humiliated the Empire. "We should reconsider this alliance entirely." Liara felt tension tighten her shoulders but remained silent. She knew speaking too early could weaken her position. Kalor raised a hand for silence. "We are here to discuss facts, not emotions." He looked toward Lyra. "You have information." Lyra stepped forward. Adrian stood slightly behind her, offering silent support. She activated a holo display, revealing maps of sabotage locations and financial trails.
These attacks were not random protests, she said clearly.
They were coordinated attempts to create fear and weaken negotiations. Evidence suggests involvement from networks linked to House Syraxis. Gasps and angry whispers spread across the chamber.
A tall noble wearing the colors of House Syraxis stood abruptly. "This is an insult," he said. "You accuse us without proof because you seek to protect your human companion." Liara's voice remained calm. "I seek to protect truth." Truth or rebellion against tradition? Before Lyra could answer, Adrian stepped forward respectfully.
If I may speak. Several nobles reacted with surprise. Humans rarely addressed Imperial councils directly.
Kaelor nodded slightly.
Speak. Adrian projected additional data showing communication patterns linking sabotage groups.
These signals match encryption used by Syraxis security networks. We believe they hired intermediaries to avoid direct blame. General Vathan entered quickly with several guards. "Your Majesty," he said, "we intercepted a message confirming plans for another sabotage attempt today."
"Where?"
"The central communication hub," Vathan replied. Murmurs spread through the chamber again. If the hub was damaged, it could paralyze coordination across the capital. Liara felt urgency surge through her. "We must act immediately." The Syraxis noble laughed softly. Perhaps the humans themselves arranged this to create chaos. Anger flashed briefly in Adrian's eyes, but he stayed calm. Liara stepped closer to the noble, her voice steady. "If you truly believe that, then come with us to stop it."
"Stand beside us and prove your loyalty."
The noble hesitated, clearly not expecting such a challenge. Kaelor watched the exchange carefully. For the first time, Liara sensed pride beneath his serious expression. "We will go together," the Emperor declared. "Princess Liara, Captain Hale, and General Vathan will lead the response." Moments later, they boarded a fast transport ship racing toward the communication hub. The city rushed beneath them, alive with movement. Inside the ship, Liara checked tactical data while Adrian reviewed security layouts. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly. She met his gaze. "I am no longer afraid of choosing." He smiled faintly. "Good." When they arrived, security forces were already evacuating civilians. Suspicious figures attempted to flee through maintenance tunnels. Liara moved with surprising confidence, guiding guards to block escape routes. Adrian assisted engineers in stabilizing systems targeted by sabotage devices. Working together felt natural now, their movements synchronized without needing many words. One of the suspects tried to trigger an explosive device remotely, but Adrian reached him in time, disabling the control unit. The suspect was captured alive. Under questioning, he revealed connections to Syraxis intermediaries, providing the final proof needed. Hours later, back in the council chamber, the evidence was undeniable. House Syraxis representatives sat in stunned silence as the truth emerged. Kaelor's voice carried authority. "You endangered our people and attempted to manipulate fear for power. Such actions betray the Empire." The Syraxis noble lowered his head, defeated. Relief spread through the room. The threat against the Alliance had been exposed. Kaelor turned toward Liara. "You have defended the Empire with wisdom and courage." Though she kept her composure, he continued, "I forced a path upon you without listening. That was my failure." The chamber grew quiet. Hearing the Emperor admit fault was rare. "The arranged marriage is cancelled," he declared. "Our alliance with humanity will be built on cooperation, not obligation." Many nobles reacted with surprise, but few dared argue after the conspiracy was revealed. Liara felt a weight lift from her chest. She glanced toward Adrian, who gave a small nod of respect. After the council ended, Lyra walked with her father through a quieter corridor. "You have changed," Kaelor said softly. "So have you?" she replied. He gave a faint smile. "Perhaps humanity's influence is not weakness after all." Liara laughed quietly. "Perhaps empathy is another form of strength." Later that evening, a celebration took place in the palace gardens. Diplomats from many worlds gathered, their conversations filled with cautious optimism. Liara stood beside Adrian near a pool reflecting the stars. "You know," he said, "this is not how I imagine this mission ending." "How did you imagine it?" she asked. "With more paperwork," he replied with a grin. She laughed softly, feeling lighter than she had in days.
For what? For treating me like a person, not a symbol. Adrian's expression softened. You were always a person.
Some people just needed reminding. They stood quietly for a moment, watching lights dance across the water. "What happens now?" he asked. Liara looked up at the sky where distant ships traveled between stars. "Now we build something new. Slowly, carefully, together." He nodded. The story closed with Liara no longer defined by tears or rejection, but by courage and choice. She had faced tradition, defended truth, and helped create an alliance built not on obligation, but respect. And as the Empire moved into a new era, the bond between a human and an alien princess stood as proof that understanding could change even the strongest traditions.